circling back to our top story, Pita Limjaroenrat has failed in his bid to become Thailand's next prime minister, but he's vowed to keep fighting on.
The frontrunner suffered defeat yesterday in a parliamentary vote marked by abstentions and no-shows. Mr Pita needed 375 votes to secure the premiership, but ended up 51 votes shy of that figure. The next round of voting is scheduled for this coming Wednesday.
All right, for more, let's speak now with Michael Montesano. He's Associate Senior Fellow at ISEAS Yusof Institute, and he joins us this morning from Tokyo. Now, Michael, how big a blow was the failure to secure a majority in the first vote to Mr. Pita and his party?
I think it was a blow to the Thai electorate much more than to Mr. Pita himself. The Thai electorate made its wish very clear in the elections last month. And I think that they've now seen that there are forces and structures that impede their will. I think that Mr. Pita knows that he needs to try again, and that he's now counting on the chance to be able to try again next week.
Well, Mr. Pita said there were around 200 abstentions from the vote and lots of no-shows as well. Adding to that, he mentioned that he understood that there's a lot of pressure on them, as well as several incentives that didn't allow them to vote in alignment with the people. He's talking about those that didn't vote in favor of him. What did he mean by that? What was he alluding to?
Well, I think that this question of incentives is particularly important and particularly interesting, because if we think about the forces that are arrayed against Mr. Pita and his party, there are really three: the royalists, military interests, and economic interests. And I think that Mr. Pita, who of course is a businessman himself and comes from a relatively wealthy background, is really alluding to the fact that there are powerful economic interests in Thailand that are afraid of the program that the Move Forward Party will introduce. One plank in the Move Forward Party's platform has been demonopolization. And Thailand has a very serious competition problem. And the Move Forward Party is determined to address that problem and to address the market power of some very substantial economic interests in the country. And I really think that that's what he's getting at when he talks about incentives.
Michael, Mr. Pita may have 2 more attempts. He says he's not giving up. So what options that he and his alliance have now to muster the required support? I mean, should he consider perhaps compromising or tweaking his anti-establishment agenda?
He has said that he's unwilling to compromise on the matter of Article 112 of the Thai Criminal Code, which relates to lèse majesté. I think we need to take him at his word. I also think that to some degree, the matter of Article 112 is a pretext. I think the determination to block Move Forward from taking power is broader than that. I think it includes the issue of the monarchy, but I think it's broader than that. In terms of what he can do now, I suspect that the Move Forward Party will continue to meet as frequently and intensively as possible with senators, all behind the scenes, to try to persuade them. Whether pressure on the streets, pressure from the public, pressure on social media will lead some senators to come around, that's an open question. The other factor, quite frankly, is that we don't know really yet whether Mr. Pita will be the only candidate whose name goes forward on the 19th of July. We have to assume that there are fairly tense discussions going on now between his coalition party partner, rather the Pheu Thai party, and his party, and that Pheu Thai is chomping at the bit for the chance to put its man forward, or its candidate forward.
Yeah, so that leads me to my next question then. If he can't get this done over the line, what is his and Move Forward's plan B?
Well, he has said that right now he's focused on becoming Thailand's next prime minister. But the plan B, of course, would be to be relegated to the opposition, or perhaps to be a member of a Pheu Thai party-led coalition, but not to have the premiership. I suspect that the second is more likely. I suspect that what we'll see is Pheu Thai make a deal with other parties and ultimately leave Move Forward out in the cold, although I'm wary to make predictions. In that case, should that happen, Move Forward proved in the last parliament to be extremely effective in opposition. And I think that history is on the side of move forward. And if move forward ended up in opposition, we would simply have to see how they performed in the next election. The problem, of course, is it's unclear whether Pita will be the party leader in future elections because he's facing very serious charges, maybe not substantive charges, but very serious charges before Thailand's constitutional court.
In the scenario where a Phua Thai candidate is selected as prime minister, would that be acceptable to voters?
One of the factors there would be which parties Phua Thai teamed up with to form that coalition. If Phua Thai teamed up with parties associated with a previous military-backed government, many voters would be very upset. And that could be one trigger for unrest. If, however, Phua Thai worked out a compromise and continued to work with Move Forward, and Move Forward remained in the coalition, voters might be less upset.
And let's talk a bit about public reaction to all of this then. You mentioned at the start of the questions to you that this was actually a loss for the electorate. How do we expect them to respond as this sort of seems to stall and playing out as to who is going to be the next prime minister?
Without being in Bangkok and on the streets in Bangkok, it's very hard to figure out what sentiments are. My sense right now is that the level of outrage has not yet reached the boiling point that we'll see will lead to real trouble on the streets. The issue, of course, is that as yesterday's result sinks in, and as we approach a second and potentially third vote, people begin to get more upset. It should be noted, however, that the Thai security forces have prepared themselves, and some of those preparations are quite responsible, as any government should undertake. But some of those preparations really bespeak the possibility of a very strong crackdown if there are big demonstrations. And should that happen, all bets are off. Things could get very, very tense and very alarming.
All right, Michael, thank you very much for your time and insight this morning. Michael Montesano from the ISEAS Yusof Ishak Institute. Thank you for joining us.